All right. So remember yesterday we solved this absolute value equation, right? And when we solved this absolute value equation, before we even did something like this, we looked at a very simple one. And that simple one looked like this. We said, all right, well, I'm having a little bit of difficulty solving this absolute value equation. So let me look at a much simpler one. And we did this. Remember that? And so we looked at this and we said the absolute value of what number equals 2? What are the solutions here? 2 and negative 2. All right, so we said this expression in here must be 2, and it also could be what? Negative 2. All right, and so then we use that idea to solve this. And so remember, though, when we solve this absolute value equation, you got to get the absolute value by itself, and it is here. So then we use the same idea here. We said, well, this expression that's inside this absolute value bar must equal 8, and it also must equal what? Negative 8. And then notice I went from an absolute value equation to 2 linear equations. And so I subtracted 4 from both sides, and so one of my solutions is 4, and the other one is what? Negative 12? Okay, so those are your solutions. Now, we're looking at this now. What if I had, listen carefully, what if I had, instead of this absolute value equation, I had an absolute value inequality? Now, I'm not going to say this is going to be easy.
Oh, what's not that difficult?
It's
never that difficult.
I'm not going to say it's not that difficult.
Wow.
All right, so listen to what I'm about to say, though. And then that will give you an idea of how you can solve the more complicated ones. When I did this one, I asked, the absolute value of what number is 2? And it was easy because it was an equation. There were only 2 possibilities, a 2 and a what? Negative 2. So in the number line, when we did this, we also drew a number line, remember? So this is 0. We said 2 is a solution because 2 is how many units from 0? 2. And we said negative 2 is a solution because negative 2 is how many units from 0? 2 as well. So those were my 2 solutions. When you do this one, the less than, this is less than now, the less than, we're going to look at the number line again. Think of this. The absolute value of what number, just give me some numbers. The absolute value of what number is less than 2? Just give me a number. 1. The absolute value of 1 is what? 1, and 1 is less than 2. So is 1 a solution? Yes. So I'm going to put a dot on 1. Just for right now, I'm going to put a dot on 1 because that little dot indicates a solution. Is that the only one? No. What else? Someone said infinity, meaning that you're saying that 1,000 is a solution? Is 1,000 a solution? No, because what's the absolute value of 1,000? 1,000. Is 1,000 less than 2? No. So don't say infinity. No. Negative 1/2. So some of you are going outside the box here. You're looking at fractions. Negative 1/2. What's the absolute value of x? I'm sorry, the absolute value of negative 1/2? 1/2. Is 1/2 less than 2? Yes. So this is negative 1. This is 1/2. I'm going to put a little dot there. What about these numbers between 1/2 and 1? Yes. Because let's think 0. What's the absolute value of 0?
0.
Is 0 less than 2? Yes. So in fact, all of these, right? What about 1.5?
Yes.
What's the absolute value of 1.5? 1.5. Is 1.5 less than 2? In fact, what about 2.5? No, because what's the absolute value of 2.5? And 2.5 is not less than 2. So in other words, what I'm trying to get you to say is, I can, towards this side, I can go all the way to what number? 2. I'm going to shade in all the way over here. I'm not going to put any parentheses or brackets just yet. So I know that the largest solution is at most what? 2. Now let's think going this way. My smallest would be, what do you think? -2. Now I can't use -2.5. This right here is not a solution that I'm pointing to. Because what's the absolute value of -2.5? 2.5, and is 2.5 less than 2? No. Now, do you see an equal sign? So no bracket, right? It's going to be what? Parentheses. You can put parentheses this way, parentheses that way, and there's your graph. So my solutions are any number between what? -2 and 2. Okay. Now you're going to have to really practice with this idea because chances are, when you did do this in a previous course, meaning high school, for one thing, you probably forgot all about this, and when you did it, you're like, don't want to know it. All right, now we're gonna use this idea with something like this. And listen carefully. I'm going to solve the absolute value of x plus 3 is less than, let's say, 4. All right, now here's how we're going to do this. Okay, I'm going to go back to the one we just did. Now you got to think. Right now I'm only working with less than. There's also a what? Greater than. Right now it's just less than, though. It's just less than. Let's go back to the one we just did. The expression is just x here, right? You agree? Mm-hmm. Okay. So according to this says that my solutions must be less than 2, and at the same time they must be bigger than what? -2. So when you have an absolute value less than, you're going to write it as a compound inequality. That's that thing you just worked on. Remember those 5 problems we did? Those were what kind of inequalities? Compound. So less than, absolute value less than, you're going to write as a compound inequality. So you see this right here? Well, first of all, y'all agree that this right here is this graph. Okay. So when you have an absolute value less than, you're going to take the expression that's in the middle, you're going to put it in the middle. And you're going to say less than 2, and then you're going to say greater than what? -2. Okay? Always go back to when we talked about the equations, the absolute value equations. I said, if you have difficulty remembering the process, think of the simpler one. Think of this, and then that will give you an idea about this. Do the same thing here. Think of a simple one. So if you get stuck on something like this, and go back to this and ask yourself, well, I remember doing this, and I know that the absolute value that x must be between 2 and a what? -2. Once you get that idea, then listen carefully. So is this an absolute value less than or an absolute value greater than? Less than. So with an absolute value less than, you're going to write it as a what kind of inequality? Compound. This inside expression goes in the middle. You see this? What's my inside expression here? X plus 3. So you're going to say x plus 3 is less than 4. And at the same time, it has to be bigger than what? -4. And now we're almost done. One more step and you're done. You found your solution. So how do you get x in the middle? Subtract 3 from all parts. So -7 is less than x is less than what? 1. So you found your solutions. So all my solutions must be between what two numbers? -7 and 1. Okay? So absolute value less than, you're going to write as a compound inequality. Now, when you write things as a compound inequality, guys, you got to make sure that your inequalities are pointing in the same direction. So when I said this, when I said x plus 3 must be less than 4, and at the same time greater than, don't actually write the greater than symbol like this. That's not what I mean, okay? This is what? Greater than -4. So those inequality symbols, I didn't mean this to be an equal sign. The inequality symbols must be pointing in the same direction. See, this is less than, this must also be what? Less than. They must be pointing in the same direction. So when I graph this, here's 0, here's -7, here's 1. Now it's not scaled right. Obviously, this looks like the -7 is the same distance from 0 as 1 is. I didn't scale it very well. But on -7 and 1, will it be parentheses or brackets? On both of them, and shade in all the numbers between them. Okay? So you found your solution. Why isn't 2 a solution? So it goes back to what we did earlier. So let's see why 2 is not a solution. 2 is not, right? Because it's not what? Shaded. So if I go back to the original being the absolute value inequality, what's 2 plus 3?
5.
What's the absolute value of 5?
5.
Is 5 less than 4? No. Let's see why -10 is not a solution. -10 is not. What's -10 plus 3?
-7.
-7. What's the absolute value of -7?
7.
Is 7 less than 4? No. Okay? All right, let's look at this one. So I'm going to write this as number 1. This will be number 2. All right, let's solve number 3. Okay, suppose we had the absolute value of 2x minus 5 is less than, let's say, 6. The absolute value of 2x minus 5 is less than 6. So I need for you to rewrite it. So it's an absolute value less than. So when you see absolute value less than, you're going to write what kind of inequality? Compound with that expression in the middle. So what I'm saying is this. You're going to rewrite it without the absolute value bars. Okay? So what's my expression? 2x minus 5 is less than 6. And on the other side, you're going to say that has to be greater than what? -6. That's your next step. You got to show that step. Mistake people make is this now. And I want you to notice what some errors are. Oops. Okay. So what some people do is they do this. Is that true? No. The absolute value is not less than 6 and greater than -6. The absolute value is only less than 6. So don't write like that. When you write a compound inequality, remove the inequality, remove the absolute value bars. So don't do that. So go from the original problem with the absolute value bars to the next step without it. And now you just get x in the middle. So what's the next step? Add 5 to both sides. So I get what? -1 is less than 11. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it over. What's the next step? Divide both sides by 2. So I get -1/2 is less than x is less than what? 11/2. Okay, so that's where I'm at. So I found my solution. So my solutions are between what? I didn't mean to be -1. This is -1/2. So my solution is between -1/2 and what? 11/2. -1/2 and 11/2. All right. So on the number line, here's 0. Here's -1. Here is it's not. I'm running out of room, so it's not scaled right. So let's say this is 4, 5, 6. It's not scaled right. But where's -1/2 located? Between -1 and 0, right? Right in the middle. Where's 11/2 located? 11/2 is what mixed number? 5 1/2 says between 5 and 6. -1/2, and 11/2, I need what? Parentheses. So make sure you put the parentheses on -1/2 like this, okay? And make sure you put parentheses on 11/2 like this. And what else do I do? Shade between them. And so what's the interval notation?
Parentheses, -1/2, comma, 5.5.
Or 5.5 or 11/2 parentheses. Okay? All right, let's do one more with absolute value less than, and then we'll do the greater than tomorrow. So let's look at number 4. Okay, listen carefully. This is number 4. Okay, number 4. Two plus the absolute value of 3x minus 1 is less than or equal to 3. 2 plus the absolute value of 3x minus 1 is less than or equal to 3. What do you do? Okay, you have to get the absolute value by itself, just like you did with absolute value equations. So what are you going to do? No, that's not 2 times, that's what? 2 plus. You're going to subtract 2. You're going to subtract 2. Okay? And so 2 plus 2 is 0. 0 plus its absolute value is its absolute value, right? And that's less than or equal to what? 1. Okay, now I have the absolute value by itself. It's absolute value less than, in this case, less than or equal to. So I'm going to write it as a compound inequality with that expression in the middle. So what are you going to write next? And what to write? -1 is less than or equal to 3x minus 1 is less than or equal to 1. Now, someone said greater than. So here's why you would use the word greater than. You'd say, all right, 3x minus 1 has to be less than or equal to 1, right? And at the same time, it has to be greater than or equal to what? -1. All right, what's the next step? Add 1 to all parts. What's -1 plus 1?
0.
So I get 0 is less than or equal to 3x is less than or equal to 2. One more step, we'll go ahead and rewrite this over.
Divide everything by 3.
Divide everything by 3. Divide all parts by 3. What's 0 divided by 3?
0.
0. 3x divided by 3? X. 2 divided by 3 is just 2/3, right? Okay. So on the number line, I have 0 and 1. Where's 2/3 located?
About 2/3 of the way to 1.
2/3 of the way to 1, okay. So close to 1 though, right? Let's say here. All right, now, where do I need brackets? Now, there's brackets here because of the equal sign. So where do I need the brackets?
0.
0 and
2/3.
2/3. Now, for the most part, almost all of you, except for a couple, were drawing the brackets and parentheses in the wrong place. Okay? So when I put the bracket, do I put the bracket somewhere around here? No. I never did that. Where did I put the bracket? On that number. If you put it outside, I'm going to be very upset with you. Like this. Where do I put the other one? 2/3. Do I put it way out here? Better not. 2/3. And where do I shade? Between them. So there's your answer. There's your graph. So I made some with my voice, some annotations, so that way those of you that did make that mistake, you'll know, hey, he did something with his voice. So I better remember that. All right. What is the interval notation? All right, good. All right, so that was just less than. So tomorrow we're gonna look at the greater than. So when you finish with the with that next